I think
it is a shame though he does not have the best mustache in the AFC West.
Who has the best mustache in the AFC West?
Travis Kelce does.
Travis Kelce, 100%.
Yeah, I can't argue that. I can't believe I didn't write that down as one of our questions, actually.
Yeah.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back. This is the Ride the Pine podcast. I am Sean Sproat. That is Kenny Hutton and Adam Freeman. Do not adjust your dials. Don't change the channel. Yes, we are actually back. It took a month of time off, and you're probably wondering, where were we? What happened to the guys? It's been a tough month. We took some time off because, unfortunately, we didn't get picked for the Olympic breakdancing team. We didn't qualify. We tried. Now just life gets in the way. We were supposed to record last week, and one of us fell asleep. I'm not going to point fingers.
Because it was him.
So since we've been gone for so long, guys, what's the best thing you saw? What's the best thing that happened while we were on our break?
Kenny,
for me, the best thing that happened on the break reached its thrilling conclusion Tuesday morning at 8:30 when Doug Armstrong offer sheeted two, not one, but two Edmonton Oilers, Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway. Neither were matched by the Oilers, who are in cap hell. And the Blues just stole two top 15 picks from the Oilers that have NHL experience. I love the move.
I think it's a fantastic move. It doesn't get done enough in the NHL. This is to the extent of, I only think EPL might be the only thing that is kind of the same, kind of similar to where you have the ability for teams to talk to other players, to transfer them during the season or to sign a contract or something like that. It doesn't happen in the NFL because only thing that would happen with that would truly be when a player gets franchise tagged. It doesn't happen in the MLB. Tampering happens all the time in the NBA. But to have something like this happen where a team literally, I know he just said he didn't do it for any reason. He was just targeting the team, but a GM strategically targets a specific GM from another team, in my opinion, and finds a situation that they planned it out to where they almost made it impossible for the Oilers to be able to keep either of them because of the situation. They could have probably kept one and been okay, but in reality, if you're keeping one, you got to keep the other. It makes it awesome.
To Adam's point, obviously the rumor has been rampant here in St. Louis that Doug Armstrong wouldn't have done this to Ken Holland. This is my favorite quote, maybe by Army ever. I'm considering getting this tattooed on me. Quote, "It was reported that I wouldn't have done this to Kenny Holland. That's the furthest thing from the truth. Quite honestly, I'd do it to my mother if she was managing the Oilers. My job is to take care of St. Louis Blues fans and the organization." And being Canadian, he probably said it organization. Yeah, but we'll forgive him for that. But if nobody on the internet in Blues Twitter has put that image up, like Doug Armstrong saying that, and then drop the glasses down and put deal with it, the internet is broken.
Mm-hmm. And it's huge for the Cardinals. Jesus, they don't do anything like this. It's huge for the Blues because now they have, I believe the number is 10 players on their roster that are under the age of 24. 27, that's it. And they have 12 former first-round draft picks all under the age of 27.
And the Oilers' average age jumped 2 years.
So their youngest forward is Connor McDavid.
The best part of that quote, by the way, is the fact that he says he wouldn't do it if his mother was the GM of the Oilers, which means he just specifically singled out Oilers and not the other 30
for sure,
which
for
is fantastic.
Sure. Yeah, it was a bigger shot at the Oilers than it was his own mother.
Yeah, Adam, what's the best thing you saw?
There was a lot of stuff that I saw that was awesome. A lot of medals handed out, a lot of random sports that I've watched that I've never even thought I would watch. One being breakdancing. It's not a sport, but it was interesting.
Breaking.
It was interesting. There was also, I don't know if anybody else caught it. It was kayak cross.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I highly recommend it. If I could try that and not pee my pants, I would do it. But I think truly for
in the water already.
Yeah, one of the best things that I've seen, sticking with an American theme, is a gentleman out of Hagerstown, Maryland. He's been in his craft for, I think it's like 21 years. He's had a lot of smaller victories in his life. This is definitely the biggest one. And you may know it. His name is
Knight. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't play the whole thing. That is LA Knight. He won the U.S. championship. We're going to play it one more time.
LA Knight. Yeah.
There it is. He won the U.S. championship for the WWE. Well-deserved. The man has been around a lot for a lot of different companies. He started with WWE. He went to NXT. He went to what I believe the NWA. He was in TNA. He won a championship with TNA. Got released by them. Went back to the WWE. Was just a grinder for his entire career. And now he beats the pants off of one of the Paul brothers. I don't even know which one. I don't really care. He sucks and he's not in WWE anymore, at least present in WWE anymore. It's well-deserved. You see a guy like that literally has busted his ass. To have somebody come out and, I mean, truly, and Kenny, you could probably argue it if you want to, but captivate an audience. I mean, his profile has changed. He has got a major backing now. He's a major face in WWE. I think that he's on the path for bigger and better things, finally. And also, there is a striking resemblance to him and my uncle and myself. I'm pretty sure that one of us could play him at any certain point of his life.
If
I have a picture of my uncle that it looks just like LA Knight, except probably 10 years older.
If I were a betting man before I asked you guys what the best of the break was, and I put the money on hockey and wrestling, I'd be a rich man because that's clearly worth the best odds. I love that.
You probably would have lost, though, because you probably would have picked me for the wrestling.
I would have.
For sure.
I would have, yeah. The best thing that I saw while we were gone, I could go back to the well and I could say the breakdancing because genuinely that changed my life for the better in that moment. But I think I'm gonna go just Hugh Jackman's abs in Deadpool and Wolverine. I mean, what training regimen is this man on at the age of 58? Yes, at 58 years old. My God, the movie theater, it was a palpable melt in the movie theater when that happened.
There was a flood, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
You have something you need to tell us?
Hey, what I do outside of this show is none of your concern.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
All right, let's jump into our actual topic for today, which is the NFL, specifically the AFC. We're going to give a rundown. We got a couple topics we want to talk about. And we'll pretty much just dive into it. We're going to talk about NFC next week, but football is like right around the corner, guys. We're there. We're already 2 preseason games into it. So we need to get on this. We can't take any more breaks. We definitely got to talk about it. So AFC specific only this episode. Who are your favorites at this point?
I mean, there's only one real favorite, and it's the Chiefs. I think that as far as teams that could potentially unseat them, I think the Texans. I think it's Texans or Bengals, in my opinion. I think one of those two teams will beat them. I don't think that the Ravens are going to be able to. Derrick Henry is an interesting addition to their team, but I don't think that they're better than either of them. I like the Texans to be there, but it's the Chiefs. Like, by far, it's the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, as far as favorites go in the conference, I don't even think it's close. Like, the Chiefs are the odds-on favorite for the Super Bowl. which means they're the odds-on favorite for the AFC. I think the Ravens are probably the next closest team. I am not sold that Joey B is fully healthy. I'm also not really sold on Derrick Henry in a Ravens uniform. We'll see about that. Man, you putting the Texans up there. I just don't think they're ready for that yet. That moment is going to be too large for that team. I mean, I could see them getting a favorable bracket and going to the AFC Championship, but there is no way CJ Stroud goes into Arrowhead and wins.
No, I don't think there's a way that I don't think that it happens, but I think that typically a quarterback in the NFL has their biggest jump from year 1 to year 2. And if CJ Stroud's jump is from year 1 to year 2, we're talking about an MVP candidate.
I think 2 to 3 is typically a bigger jump. I think the sophomore slump exists for a reason.
I don't know. I think the better quarterback candidates, it's definitely year 2. You see that transition, and CJ Stroud had a hell of a year last year too.
You know, I was talking about it with somebody today about Mahomes, and we were talking about him in terms of a fantasy quarterback. Like, he's not actually the fantasy quarterback you want to pick because he doesn't run as much anymore. I think for Stroud to make that jump and be into the next echelon, he either has to do one of two things. He's got to stop running and become like Mahomes. And I don't think he can. I don't think he's there yet. Mm-hmm. Or he has to start running like Lamar. And there's no in between for CJ Stroud. Like, it's got to be one or the other. You know, typically, I'm going to say this, and I don't want to try to get into these weeds, but like, black quarterbacks have to run, right? Like, they don't get to be pocket passers. Mahomes kind of broken that trend because up until then, Warren Moon was a pocket passer. But like Cunningham and McNair, they all kind of ran.
His name was Air McNair.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he still ran for.
Not like Lamar, though.
No, nobody runs like Lamar, but like Lamar set this trend of like these young black quarterbacks who are supposed to run. Like Jaden Daniels is going to be expected to run. Jaden Daniels isn't a runner, though.
I think Vic set that trend.
I was going to say Vic is probably the first one.
That's probably more fair. I before the dogfighting years, Michael Vick has almost been erased from my memory. So,
Falcons memory too.
So really quickly before we move on, I did find this really interesting article on The Athletic. Austin Mock of The Athletic basically draws up a projection model of who can win the most games. And what he does, It's really interesting. I'll put it in our show notes, but essentially what he did is, let me pull it back up here so I have all the correct information. But he, based on a ton of different criteria, he runs over 100,000 mock games. Kansas City Chiefs have the most win total, which you would expect, right? They have 11.3. The next closest are the Cincinnati Bengals at 10.2, the Baltimore Ravens at 10.2, the Buffalo Bills at 9.7. And I know people are going to ask, so let me clarify real quick. It's a projection model that's play-by-play data. It creates an offensive and defensive projection for each team, and then from there, he simulates every game for the entire season and repeats that process over 100,000 times.
Wow.
It's pretty impressive. This is a really cool article. Like I said, I'll link it. But Kansas City Chiefs clearly are the favorite. Exactly what you guys said. Houston Texans, by the way, are at 9 wins on that list, which puts them at 7th in the AFC.
I mean, we're talking about a team that was dead last 2 years ago,
and projected to finish dead last year when they just came out of the gate running.
Correct. I really like DeMarco Ryans. CJ Stroud is phenomenal. We can talk about them a little bit more later.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get to him. But this is a really interesting list. I'm going to kind of reference it as we go on. But he also does it for the NFC, which we'll tackle next week as well. But so if those are your guys' favorites, let's do the inverse. Who's going to be at the bottom of the conference? Who's the worst teams coming out of the AFC?
So I had one written down and I scratched it out. But I think I've got the two contenders for the worst. I've got the Broncos. Broncos are the team I scratched out because I forgot about the New England Patriots. But I think it's going to really be a coin flip between those two teams for a race for the bottom.
I don't know about coin flip, but I think you're right. Patriots are going to run away with it in the end. Like they are not good. They have, I would say, probably one of the harder schedules in the NFL, probably other than an NFC North team, because they do have the Bills twice, they have the Dolphins twice, and they have whatever's going to become of the Jets twice. So there is most likely 6 losses right out of the gate for them. I think they also play the NFC West, so that means they're going to play the Niners, the Seahawks, and the Rams, which will all probably be better. So there's 9 losses. Let's see. They also have the Bears on their calendar. They've got the Chargers on their calendar. Yeah, they've got the Bengals. I think that's who they start with. Truthfully, I don't see them winning more than 2 games this year. I think the Broncos probably have the second worst. But I think a team that could really shock people as far as being bad is the Titans. I don't trust Will Levis at all. Probably because he puts mayonnaise in his coffee. He's a fucking weirdo. But I don't. That team, they fired the best head coach that team has had since 7-9 Jeff Fisher.
Adam, you're so correct. The Titans are so bad. When I scrolled past them on the list of like betting odds, I thought they were NFC, that they were that bad.
Yeah, so they would be a team that wouldn't shock me. And again, this is because who they have to play. They're going to play the Texans and the Colts twice. They're going to play the Jaguars twice, which maybe they win 1, but there's 5 losses right there. That doesn't start you out well when you're playing. So I would say Patriots are 1 for me, and then I probably have a group of 2, A, B, and C, and it would be the Broncos, the Raiders, and I would throw the Titans in there as well.
You guys hit the nail on the head, by the way, when it comes to the Athletic Austin Mox projections. Denver Broncos are dead last at 6 wins. Patriots and Titans 6.7, 6.8 respectfully. And then you got a flurry of other teams in there as well.
That's rough.
Yeah.
You said respectfully like it was supposed to garner.
If the reports are true coming out of New England about their quarterback situation, I don't see them winning more than like 4 games.
Their best quarterback wasn't even their first round draft pick. It was Joe Milton that they took in the 3rd round or 4th round.
Right. Yeah. And who knows? Maybe he'll be incredible and he'll have a CJ Stroud kind of a season, but that team around him is just not very good.
No, it's terrible.
All right, who's the surprise team? Who's going to make the biggest jump? I guess is another way you could frame it. But who is your surprise team?
I think it's probably not a surprise. I think it's the Colts. I think if Anthony Richardson stays healthy, that team's going to be really good. You have Pittman Jr. on one side, you have Adonai Mitchell on the other. I think that team is set up for success, but I think they're a year away. But they could come out and shock. That would be the team that would be a shock to me to come
out. For me, I don't think I'm necessarily basing this on necessarily wins or losses. But I think it's the Raiders. Garner Minshew again somehow finds a way to win games and keep his team in games. If I'm the Raiders, I'm looking for a big splash. Let's say somebody like I don't know, Drew Lock is available for trade. Maybe it's the time to go and get one of these quarterbacks who's been sat on the bench and behind somebody and let him do its thing. Like Drew Lock's got a proven NFL arm. But you got some young talent, and Brock Bowers is going to be the next Travis Kelce, I think. And The Raiders probably will not win as many games because of the division they're in. But for me, I think they're going to compete. And that is something we haven't been able to say about the Raiders in a couple of years.
I heard an awesome story the other day. I think it was yesterday or today, one of the two, about Gardner Minshew. So apparently when he graduated, he had an offer to go be a grad assistant for Saban at Alabama. Like,
Wow.
he had everything set, ready to go. He was getting ready to go down to Tuscaloosa, and that was what he was going to do moving forward. And Mike Leach, College Football Hall of Famer, RIP, sorely missed in college football, just his personality in general, came to him and said, look, you can either go down and play for Saban, or you can come and play for me for one more year, and I'll make you an NFL quarterback. And he did. I mean, he threw the ball around. He is a very, eccentric personality, but he's got an arm. He's one of those guys that you don't expect to be flashy, but he can be. But it proves the fact that if you can throw the ball, you can hit a wide receiver, you're going to last. And to be now the starting quarterback of the Raiders, that's awesome.
And
Yeah.
I would be remiss if I did not mention this, because I know our former podcast co-host Cameron May would be very upset. But the fact that training video came out of him with the full mustache with the mullet, which, by the way, as a combo is just something else. And he was working out to like a Creed song or something.
Yeah.
Then
I
mean, throw the money at him for MVP.
I
think
it is a shame, though, he does not have the best mustache in the AFC West.
Who has the best mustache in the AFC West?
Travis Kelce does.
Travis Kelce, 100%.
Yeah, I can't argue that. I can't believe I didn't write that down as one of our questions, actually.
Yeah.
Any other shout-outs besides the Raiders?
No.
No, I don't think
I
so.
mean, that was the team that jumped out at me.
And I mean, the other one, and it's not a shock, but I think it kind of falls into like Kenny's realm of they could be good, they could be bad. Talk about a team that legitimately could be a Super Bowl contender or number 1 top 5 draft pick next year, the Jets. Legitimately could be any of that.
It's funny you mentioned the
there's
Jets.
no middle. It's just that.
I have no hope in the Jets, but I feel like we need to discuss that. So we said who we said the surprise team. Who will regress the most? Did we say that one already? Did we? No, we haven't discussed that. Who will regress the most?
I wrote down disappointment, like biggest disappointment.
Okay, that works too. Yeah, biggest disappointment out of the AFC.
I have 3 candidates.
Okay.
The JETS, Jets are on there. They, like Adam said, they're either going to compete for the East, which I don't think they have a shot in hell to win. But Aaron Rodgers could be Aaron Rodgers again, or he could be crying into his ayahuasca trip about RFK dropping out of the presidential race. We don't know the Aaron Rodgers we're going to get. So they're candidate number 1. Candidate number 2 might actually be surprising. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars. A team with so much young talent and so much promise has really kind of fallen off the cliff. They need Trevor Lawrence to be the franchise quarterback they thought they were drafting. And I actually think they probably need to run the ball a little bit smarter than they have been. You have a top 12 back in the league. You need to use him. And they tend to not. And my third candidate is the one that should be everybody's pick for this, is the Chargers. The Chargers are going to absolutely fall off.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty close. I have the Chargers as my second one. That was on my list that you don't know what you're going to get from Herbert because he's got that plantar fasciitis that he's dealing with. You don't know what Harbaugh is going to bring. Now, they could also be a team that could come out and shock, but I don't think they do. I think it takes a year or two for that system to finally set in. I think the Steelers, they were my number 1 as far as a disappointment.
Really?
And I say that because not that they have a great quarterback situation, but they have a good quarterback situation. They're also the team that is rumored that if this Brandon Ayuk situation doesn't pan out, in San Francisco, that there's a deal in place so that he can go to the Steelers and the Steelers will pay him and the trade will get made. And that makes a big difference on that team. They were my number one because of what they have and the potential that they could be. And they're in a really tough division. I think that it's going to be really hard for them to be able to get out of that division alive. And then I had a third one that I wrote down, and this is only because of what their expectation is going to be. It's the Chiefs. If they don't win the Super Bowl, it's a massive disappointment. And yes, they are a favorite, but if they get to the AFC Championship game and lose, that's a massive disappointment for that team. Everybody has them there, and it takes one slip up for that team to be a massive disappointment, and it could happen. There are teams that definitely could knock them off in the AFC title game.
I think the only way that happens is if Patrick Mahomes is injured and doesn't play. I think if he's in that lineup and they're playing at home, I don't think there's any chance of that happening. So that's why I would not put them on my list. I don't even think that's a possibility unless he gets hurt.
I mean, yes, but it could happen. I mean, that's
it
all
could totally happen.
That's the problem is that your expectation is so high. We're talking like 90s, late 2000s Yankees that they're guaranteeing that they're going to basically win the Super Bowl this year, or at least be a damn close chance of winning it. If they don't, it is a massive disappointment for that franchise.
I thought the Jacksonville Jaguars shout out was really good. Is this the last chance for Trevor Lawrence to really
he just signed a massive contract.
Oh, I'm not talking from like a monetary standpoint. I'm just talking about from us selecting them to be decent, for them to make an actual playoff run with the players around him. Is this Trevor Lawrence's last chance? If he comes out and he is mediocre again, that will have to change the perspective on him. That will have to change how the Jaguars approach the season after that, right?
Yeah, I think you're right, with a caveat. And that caveat would be is Lawrence has never truly had a big time receiver at the NFL level. I mean, right now, who's his number one? Christian Kirk?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, let's see here. When he was at Clemson, who would have been his big time receiver?
Higgins. Did he have Higgins? Or did Watson have Higgins?
No, I think Watson was Watson T. Damn, I can't think right now. Anyway. Yeah, I would say he's borderline, Sean. Like, how I judge a quarterback is really simple. If I was in a 10-team fantasy league, am I drafting him? And the answer is no. Like, I know that's a simple and stupid way to look at it, but it's an easy way to correlate it.
So here's my thought on it, though. And this is why I think the NFL is messed up in how contracts are handed out right now. We went through this whole deal with quarterbacks. We're still kind of going through it with Dak Prescott. We're going through it with wide receivers now that everybody's new contract that's a top player has to be the next highest paid player. Trevor Lawrence, I believe not next year, but the year after, will count as like a $55 million cap hit or something like that. I think at a certain point when you get paid that way, and honestly, I think that the Dolphins probably fall into this category as well, is that Tua's going to get his shot, and if it doesn't work with what he's got, then they have to tear it all down and try again. You can't add talent. Christian Kirk is going to be making something where around $30 million, I think is what I saw the other day. So you still need another wide receiver coming in, probably to help out, or you're drafting one. You also need to get a decent running back in there. Like, getting the support is going to be tough if he doesn't start putting up, because he's getting paid that massive amount of money. Honestly, it's exactly the same situation as the Giants. The Giants had to pay Daniel Jones. Now they got to find a way to put talent around him.
They didn't have to pay Daniel Jones.
They didn't, but they did. Like, they don't know what they're going to get at quarterback. You don't. At a certain point, they have you by the short and curlies because of the situation you're in.
So
and you go from there.
let me ask this question. You're talking about these. Player A gets a $50 million contract, so player B, who's next in line, needs to get a $55 million contract. Do you think you would start seeing more contracts like the Mahomes contract, where he gets a % of the salary cap? And everybody thought that was going to be debilitating for the Chiefs, and right now they are the ones laughing.
You would think that, but you have so many players that are going above that. Like Mahomes is now like the 6th highest paid quarterback, which is still insane amount of money for what they're making. But
right.
You have Lawrence that's above him. You have Burrow that's above him. You have Tua that's above him. You're going to have Dak that's above him when he finally gets paid. If that man goes to free agency, he will be the highest paid quarterback by a lot. I believe Kirk Cousins is paid more than him.
Okay.
Baker might even be paid more than him.
I want to stop you right there. And I'm going to ask this question then. Those 5 quarterbacks you just named, I'm starting a franchise today. Do you take them before Mahomes? Because the answer is no.
No. The only one I would even question is Burrow, but it's still it's an easy no, I'm done. Like that's as much as I think about it. Any other one, it's an immediate no, I'm not taking him.
Yeah.
But but that's the problem. And to Sean's question, is this his last chance with Trevor Lawrence? Yeah. If he doesn't perform, if this team doesn't do it, they're going to have to find a way to be able to supplement talent through the draft to get that low value contract, because he's already getting paid and they have players already on the books.
And to Kenny, to your point about these contracts that just keep upping one another every single year, it's a copycat league. So at some point they're going to have to stop playing this game of duck, duck, goose. The levee is going to break at some point. It honestly just depends on when, and I don't know when that'll be. I think the first domino was Pat Mahomes and his contract. So I do think that is going to start the catalyst, but it could be years before we see that. Who knows? Yeah. Moving on, the best acquisition this year in the AFC. You can call that free agency, trade, however you want to roll with it. So best acquisition.
So I got 2. One of them is pretty obvious, Derrick Henry and the Ravens. I think that's the biggest one. Not that they really needed a running back situation, but they got a better running back situation. I do worry that every running back for Baltimore seems to get hurt, and Derrick Henry has never been hurt. So let's throw that juju out in the air already, mainly because he's not on my fantasy team anymore, and I want to make sure whoever has him doesn't take advantage of that. The other one I have, and it goes back to the Texans, I think Stephon Diggs with the Texans. I think that's a massive upgrade for that team. You have Nico Collins on one side, you have Stephon Diggs on the other. He's going to demand a lot of the ball, and you got a young quarterback that's going to be a little bit, with an eye glued on him at all times. So he makes sure he gets his quarterback the ball. He's not Josh Allen that's been in the league for a few years. I think that one helps out that team tremendously.
And that's actually why I'm not high on that one, is because you have a diva wide receiver going to a young quarterback. That's the last thing he needs. He's already shown that he can move the ball around that offense. Yeah. And now you're throwing in a wild card like Stephon Diggs. So that's why
you're throwing in a wild card that's a pretty high talented wild card.
Yeah, but if he was that talented, then he would still be a Buffalo Bill.
Maybe.
Cancer is still cancer, and Stephon Diggs is a cancer. And I went with a Texan that's not Stephon Diggs. I think Joe Mixon is more important to the Texans because here's why. As the former fantasy owner of Joe Mixon for many years in a row now, one, he runs the ball really well. He's never going to be 1,000, 1,500 yard rusher, but he's going to be between, let's say 700 and 900 yards. Great addition for a young quarterback. What's Joe Mixon also do really well? He catches the ball in space. 2, and my final point, Joe Mixon might do better than any running back I've paid attention to over the last couple of years is he blocks.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And what you need when you have a quarterback who could potentially be scrambling and a team that honestly, anytime you draft 2 overall, you've got more holes than you can draft and fill. So if they can slide protection to a side where maybe their guard isn't as good or their tackle isn't as good and put Mixon there, who I would trust to block, that's a great move by the Texans.
I mean, they have they have a pretty skilled offensive
They do.
skill set. Or like when
do.
you talk about skill players on offense, their wide receivers are Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, John Mechie III, who was really good at Alabama. Running back wise, you have Joe Mixon. They also have Cam Akers. They also have Damian Pierce that had a good year last year. They have Dalton Schultz, who played for, I believe, the Cowboys last year. He's a pretty good tight end. Like, they're pretty stacked when it comes to offensive talent. Oh, and their defense is really good as well.
And they're in a very winnable division, and this is going to sound very dumb when I say it, but it is a current stat. They do have the most points through preseason at this point. Yeah. Granted, they've played one more game than most of everybody else. But anyway, they do have the most points out of any team in preseason. Back to your point really quickly before we kind of move on and wrap things up about Derrick Henry. I don't think it's a matter of if he gets hurt. I think it's a matter of when, just the amount that the Ravens run the ball. He's getting older. He's a heavy runner. It's inevitable at this point. And I think the fact that he signed with Baltimore will probably seal the fate that we will see him on the IR at some point.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Any other teams or anything else you guys want to talk about before we kind of call it a day? Are there any AFC teams that we missed that we should at least mention?
I mean, we didn't really talk about Mid-Allen and the Bills. I don't think they really are. I think the Dolphins win that division. I don't know where all the Tua hate has come from all of a sudden, but there's been a lot of negativity about him. You still have Tyreek Hill. You still have Jaden Waddle. The running back. How do you say
running
his name?
Back room?
Achane. I mean, the kid is good. I mean, they're going to have a ton of weapons on offense. And
he just has to stop flashing gang signs when he gets tackled. That's all it is.
Buffalo's one of those teams that I legitimately could see them winning 12 games or winning 8, and I don't know how to decide that.
So, I mean, for me, what is it? Is it 3 wild cards? Yeah, number 1 gets a bye, and then it's 2 through 7. So, like, just this quick rundown: Chiefs, Ravens, Texans, Dolphins is my division winners. I picked the Bills, Bengals, and Browns as my wild card. I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Browns. I think Jameis Winston could actually be a surprise of the year. Like, if we weren't talking about necessarily teams, but he could be a surprise quarterback. It's insane to me that this kid won a national championship at Florida, gets drafted wherever he got drafted, and played in the NFL for like 6 years and needed LASIK eye surgery. And now is like, oh, I can actually see the receiver. Maybe that's why he stole those crab legs, is because he couldn't see that there was a price tag on them.
I thought you were going to say he didn't realize they were crab legs or some ridiculousness.
Kenny, the Bills are a very interesting team because their schedule is absolutely just loaded with teams. So I said it earlier, they still have to play the Jets. They still have to play the Dolphins twice. But they do have the Patriots, so that helps. But they also play the Ravens. They play the Texans. They play the Seahawks. They play the Rams. They play the Niners. They play the Chiefs. They play the Lions in Detroit. But the end of their schedule is so favorable. They play at home against the Patriots December 22nd. They play at home against the Jets December 29th. And then they play on the road at the Patriots just January 5th. So they have 3 freezing cold weather games to finish out. Oh, by the way, December 1st, they play the 49ers at home. So that's probably going to be a cold-ass game. If they can manage to stay 500 until the end of their schedule, they're going to come away with at least 5 wins in their last 6.
I'm not going to lie to you. You read that off, and I was immediately going through my head and kind of picking which ones they would win and which one they lose. I picked 5 wins.
That's what I'm thinking too. Their last 6 are the Niners at home, the Rams on the road, the Lions on the road, Patriots at home, Jets at home, Patriots on the road.
I think they could take 2 from the Patriots. They could take 2 from the Jets, and I actually think they beat a team like the Rams.
Yeah, I do too.
That could be rough. That could be a rough season up in Buffalo this year.
Look, this is what I'll say. Josh, if you're listening, The reason why I call you Mid Allen is because you don't lift up your teammates, and great quarterbacks do. Prove me wrong this year, please.
He's gonna have to.
Yeah, he's gonna have to. He even lost. Oh my God, the name literally just flew out of my head.
We're gonna
He
edit
just
all of
lost-
this.
he
Gabe
even lost-
Davis. There it is. Gabe
Yes.
Davis.
He even lost Gabe Davis. So like, who's he throwing to? Like me? Like, did I miss a letter in the mail? I need to report to Buffalo for wide receiver training. Like,
It's not Hogwarts.
Another team that we didn't talk about a lot that is a very interesting team to me, just because of their situation, is the Broncos. Selecting Bo Nix at 12, and now he's the starting quarterback, which granted, they had Zach Wilson, and I forget who their other quarterback was that they have. I'm looking it up right now. I can't. It's not loading. Who the hell was it? It was. Oh, Jarrett Stidham. Great. So it probably wasn't very difficult for him to be able to win that battle. But Bo Nix is a winner, and he can throw the ball. He's accurate as all hell. He's got to find somebody that can catch it. That's the key. But that team could be interesting. I just don't think they make the playoffs. I think they're a bottom feeder team. But just being able to have Sean Payton that goes out and gets a rookie quarterback, he gets his quarterback. When he gets his quarterback, it tends to work out pretty well. They're an interesting case. Like I said, I don't think they do much, but just what they do is going to be interesting.
The only thing that's going to prevent the Broncos from getting the first overall pick next year is the fact that the Panthers exist.
Well, Patriots.
And we'll talk about the Panthers in the NFC next week and everything. Ken, you had one last thought. I kind of saw.
Oh no, I was looking up where Jarrett Stidham went to college.
Okay. All right.
It was Auburn, in case anybody's wondering.
That's it. Yeah.
All right, let's get out of here, guys. That was a good
what
preview for the
would Luther
AFC.
Burden look better in? What?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. What was your thought?
No, I said it.
Are we good? Calling it?
We're good.
Show?
Good.
End the show? Okay, let's get out of here. If you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, thank you very much for tuning in. If you're listening on Apple or whatever else we're on, I really appreciate it. Please sure to give us a like and subscribe. Follow us on all of our socials. It's Pod Ride the Pine, TikTok, Instagram, X, Threads. Some of those we almost never use, but we are technically on there. Most of them. So definitely give us a follow on there, interact with us. Let us know what you thought of the show. Leave us, like I said, a rating on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast at. So let's call it, guys. Good stuff. Good to be back. I desperately miss Olympic breakdancing.